Hello, welcome to Hollywood Crime Scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, this is Desi Jedeikin.
And we're back with more Menendez.
We got more of these brothers. They're doing so many things that we have to cover.
This is going to be a four-parter?
Yes. So, as the previous weeks, my sources are The Menendez Murders by Robert Rand, The Writings on the Case by Dominic Dunn for Vanity Fair, and the documentary Menendez Murders, Eric Tells All. I like how it's like The Women Tell All from The Bachelor.
Yeah.
That documentary is pretty interesting, I have to say, because Eric basically narrates the whole thing.
From prison?
From prison. He's telling what was really going on in his head or these moments. And they do have interviews with some people that I'll mention today, actually. So it's like interesting. Like there's a cousin, and I just saw her on this documentary because I was rewatching an episode, and it was just weird to see her. I was like, oh, that's Debbie. Like I know her.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're back for part 3, where we left off. Eric and Lyle's psychiatrist, his lover, has gone to the police with info about their confessions to the murder of their parents. And on March 8th...
Wait a minute. The psychiatrist wasn't the lover.
No, the psychiatrist's lover.
The psychiatrist's lover.
Yeah, his lover.
Yeah, that lady. She's nosy.
Yes. What's her name?
Judalon.
Yes. On March 8th, Lyle, he basically gets flagged down by a dozen heavily armed Beverly Hills policemen as he's leaving the mansion in his brother's Jeep. And they like full on take this guy down. Like they arrest him. He's lying on the street. The neighbors are coming out. Guns are drawn on him.
You mean it wasn't like it was in the Lifetime movie?
Well, the Lifetime movie that I posted actually is kind of accurate.
Okay, but
I don't know if they were listening to Fine Young Cannibals.
That's what the people wanted to know. Was he listening to She Drives Me Crazy?
I don't know. Was that song out in that year?
Yes, it came out in 1989.
So good job for the Lifetime movie crew for picking an accurate song.
Because I don't like when they get the date wrong.
Yeah.
I have a question. Was he with all his Orange Mocha Frappuccino friends?
I think he was with some friends because they had just played chess. And he's completely clueless. Like he did not see this arrest coming at all, which is I would have been like every day they're going to get me. So obviously this is a huge news story. That clip, by the way, from the Lifetime movie is available on our Instagram if you want to see.
And our TikTok.
It looks that movie looks corny as hell.
Yeah, I want to see it.
And the casting of the brothers is not great, in my opinion. I'm not talking about their acting, the looks.
Well, I like in the clip, then it shows Lyle. Wait, who got arrested first?
Lyle gets arrested first.
They show Eric getting arrested after, and that guy, the actor, is like, I really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, he's in Israel. So this makes news. As I just said, Eric is in Israel. He's participating in like a tennis tournament, like that professional circuit thing that rich people do. A friend calls him and at some point realizes that Eric doesn't know Lyle was arrested. He says, I hope you're sitting down. Lyle was just arrested. And Eric becomes hysterical. He eventually makes his way back to LA to turn himself in. Now, on March 12th, 1990, DA Ira Reiner holds a press conference. And he basically says that the boys were being charged with murder that included special circumstances, which meant it was a death penalty case. Those special circumstances are murder for money. That's like one of the special circumstances you can get. He also claimed in the press conference that they had been suspects almost since day one, leading a smartass reporter to say, if that's the case, then why did it take 7 months to arrest them?
They weren't exactly being sly.
And that was a very good question. There's always that one guy like,
excuse me. I think we're all thinking the same thing, but I'm going to be the brave one to say it.
Yeah, like congratulations, but
I think the writing was on the wall when we saw these boys go on their Beverly Hills shopping spree.
Right. So when he's asked about what the motive might be, he says basically in his experience, $14 million provides plenty of motive. When the brothers make their first appearance in court later that, after Eric's arrest, by the way, one of their initial attorneys is Robert Shapiro.
Wow.
Now, I can't remember who we said this about recently, but he's like the Forrest Gump of LA crime.
He is. He was everywhere.
He's literally like at some point has been on every case, even if they replace him at some point.
Right.
He started off as the attorney.
Yeah.
So the media is obviously already surrounding the courthouse. They show up dressed in fancy Italian suits. Dominic Dunn is like, if they're not Armani, they look like Armani. He also says he was struck by their glamourness. Seeing them for the first time was like seeing lead actors in a TV show. And they were accompanied by their family and their two girlfriends who sat behind them in support.
Do you think that girlfriends talk to each other like, should we break up with them?
Isn't it like, I'd be like, I'm not going to court. I need to think about what I'm doing here. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because I'd also be embarrassed.
I'm just like,
I would want to stay out of it because then you have like the Daily Mail like making up stories about you.
Also, they're not like, I think at least Eric's is like a newer girlfriend. I'm just like,
well, I can give a pass to like a long-term relationship.
Yes.
But if I just started dating a guy like a month ago and he gets arrested for murder, I'm not going to court. I'm moving on.
I'd be like, this is a red flag.
Yeah.
I see it.
I'd ask my girlfriend, do you think this is a red flag? Should I keep dating him?
So as the boys listen to the charges against them, many start noticing that they're kind of smiling. This is very famous footage of them kind of like almost chuckling sometimes to each other. Later, Dominic Dunn asks a friend of theirs who was a supporter and believed they were innocent why they were smiling. And she said at the judge's voice. And the judge does have a very, it's a woman. And it's kind of like, it is kind of funny, but I still wouldn't be laughing. But the thing that really kind of made them laugh was when she said they were being charged with the murder of Jose Menendez.
Oh, instead of Jose?
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of relate to that, like when you're in such a scary or stressful situation and you have an inappropriate reaction, you start laughing because you're so nervous.
I mean, you don't have to tell me.
I'm just saying.
I'm like, exactly.
Maybe they're like us, where like we can't be in a room together when it's serious.
Well, and Eric does explain that in his documentary. He said his smile was really nerves because inside he wanted to die and he was barely holding on to his sanity. The assumption that he was feeling lighthearted was the exact opposite of what was going on internally for him. He also explained, and they have footage of this moment, that as they walked into the courtroom, his attorney, Leslie Abramson, cracked some kind of joke to him to break the tension, and that was sort of what started it. Like,
he's still laughing at that joke,
I guess.
He's like,
good one.
A good one. Yeah. Honestly, that's a gamble as a defense attorney because you're really taking a risk there because there's a chance that your client will be like, how dare you?
Well, and like I've probably said in previous episodes, this is one of the first cases where they have cameras like every single day in court, and a lot of people are watching and seeing it
and picking apart everything.
Yeah, so everything is being like under a microscope for sure. And Leslie Abramson is a personality. Like, this is a woman who is just like a caricature of a defense attorney, like a mama bear type defense attorney. Dominic describes her as being fearless and tough. At some point, he saw her entering the Beverly Hills courthouse, and she basically gave the middle finger to an NBC cameraman and saying, "Is this what you want? Is this what you want?"
She gave them the finger?
Yeah. And he asked her later, "Why'd you give the finger to that guy. And she said because one time she was privately talking to a family member and the camera came up to her and was in her face 1 inch away. She asked them to stop and they didn't. So she was kind of like getting back at them. She also said, I do not understand why this case has so much publicity. It's not like the president of the United States was shot. Well, we know that doesn't get much press after a day or so, to be fair. And Dominic's like, patricide, matricide, like wealth, Beverly Hills. And she's like, yeah, I guess, yeah.
And 2 brothers?
Yeah.
And 2 brothers. Is this lady still alive today?
I think so.
Well, I'm sure she like is even more irritated. I mean, maybe she's gotten used to it, but like nowadays you'd have fan cams on TikTok about the brothers.
Oh my God. No. And obviously these kind of like showy defense attorneys, they kind of love and hate the press, right? Because they definitely use it as well. She also describes the boys.
A Von Dutch fan cam, fan cam set to Von Dutch of Eric and Lyle Menendez. Somebody had to have made that on TikTok, right?
Oh my God. I haven't searched for it.
Point me in the direction of the lunatic who made the Von Dutch fan cam.
I will admit here and now, I did waste a little bit too much time trying to make a Calvin Klein Obsession commercial with them hugging in the trailer.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Because it's like all I could think about, that obsession.
We're talking about the Ryan Murphy trailer.
The Ryan Murphy trailer. Yeah. I was like, this isn't for me. Leslie describes to Dominic, she described the boys to Dominic as being adorable. So she's definitely like, I'm like the Jewish mom to these kids who I'm going to defend with all my heart and might. Like that's her vibe. And honestly, I feel like you would want her on your side. I'm sure she's annoyed.
Yeah, believes in you.
She's going to do everything she can. She's very famous for throwing everything at prosecution and like, she'll do anything.
Yeah, you don't want a defense attorney that's going to be like, you secretly know that they're like annoyed with you.
Yes. So the brothers eventually enter a plea of not guilty. And with the support of their extended family, they began searching for a more permanent elite attorney for Lyle. Eric obviously has really connected with Leslie Abramson. So this case is kind of interesting because the first trial, the boys are in the courtroom together. They have separate defense attorneys and separate juries.
Yeah.
So sometimes something will come up where the jury for one brother will leave because it's only about one brother. I've just never seen a case like that before.
Where it's like taking turns.
Yeah, where it's like some of this is for everyone and then some of it is individual, but we're all here kind of every day. It's like one trial still.
So, wait, different juries?
Different juries. 2 different juries. Yes.
Why aren't they tried together?
I have no idea. I guess because there's a lot of overlap. And then some things are different. Like, let's say like that screenplay writer might only be for Eric's day and not Lyle's day. Right. Stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, I guess there's so much overlap. They just did it that way.
Or potentially one of them could be found charged with a lesser or given a lesser sentence or whatever.
But the interesting thing is the defense attorneys also are kind of working together, and Leslie is sort of like the mastermind. And
she has lead.
Yeah. And I mean, Lyle has his own attorney, and I suppose a conflict could come at some point where they're like, hey, that doesn't benefit my client, only Eric.
Okay. So she's overseeing everything.
She's kind of overseeing it. And for the most part, they kind of agree on everything. So
yeah.
One guy does butt heads with her and he gets replaced eventually. So it's kind of interesting, but complicated. So Lyle does eventually get another attorney. Her name is, Jill Lansing. Sorry. So the brothers, are arrested, obviously, and they're in jail, but the investigation is far from over. There's pretty much no physical evidence that they went to look for the guns where Judalon said they were dumped, and the only thing they returned with was poison ivy. The most damning evidence are those taped confessions that were confiscated from Dr. Oziel. I mentioned that last episode, or we talked about that last episode, but they still don't know if these will be admissible. So there is a fierce legal battle over them that's looming ahead. Judilon was still working with police. She's like still taping phone calls and meetings between her and Dr. Oziel, who's still talking to her for some reason.
At this point, isn't that like hearsay?
No, because she's recording them.
No, I mean from him, like he's like, because it's not Lyle or Eric.
Well, there's 4 separate tapes. 2 are his notes.
Okay.
And 2 have them actually speaking on tape.
Eric and
Lyle.
Okay.
So it's like 2 separate types of things.
So she's gathering all this content.
She's still gathering content. So some of the conversations, Oziel is sarcastic to her. He's like, well, you did what you did, and that's what you did. He warns her about the press coverage that's coming their way. And he suggests he suggests that she's just like no comment unless you want a number of things disclosed that you don't want disclosed. So he's like threatening her. Probably he has to know he's probably being taped, but he doesn't seem to care. She even tells him at some point that she is recording him, and he continues talking to her. 2 weeks after the arrest, he says to her, we're going to be stars, but not exactly for the right reasons. So he's like low-key loving this. On June 9th, the brothers were set to attend a hearing in Santa Monica about the admissibility of those tapes. And they're driven to the hearing together in 2 separate compartments in a jail bus with their ankle chains on. When they arrived at the courthouse and were changing into their suits, guards noticed that one of Lyle's chain links connecting his ankles was almost completely sawed through. This led to a full-body search and the okay from authorities to search their cell for evidence, which led to some discoveries in Eric's cell. Inside Eric's cell, one of the deputies found what he called an escape plan with information about extradition treaties for different countries. Another deputy found a small map with references to E and L and a paper that mentions Swiss bank security and questions. What financial security will we have? How will our girlfriends fit in? Sorry. Imagine someone seeing your dumb list that you make.
I'd be so embarrassed.
It's so embarrassing, the things you write. A second paper had a list. Please explain the further different ways to enter Mexico. Do you have a secure place for us to stay in Colombia? Is it safer to travel to Lebanon from London or South America? Later that day, the sheriff's office described it as an escape attempt, while defense attorneys were labeling it nothing more than a fishing expedition. Another deputy happened to find an even bigger catch in Eric's cell. It was a 17-page letter written by Lyle to Eric. It said, amongst other things, we need to hang in there together, in my opinion. You notice I have not held you talking to Sig or Oziel against you, even though my entire life is on the verge of destruction as a result of all of this. I feel that we have done what we did together, and everything we do afterwards is both of our responsibility. I'm not the pillar of strength the papers make me out to be, or Leslie thinks I am. I think if Dad could give us one piece of advice as we left the house that night in August, it would be never to abandon each other no matter the circumstances. What we did in August was a mistake from what I can tell, and I don't know what to do about it. We did not do anything for money. To go our separate ways is to lose any meaning our actions had. So kind of like heavy letter.
Yeah.
They also seized material that was titled Oziel's Fears of the Following, which was a strategy Lyle had written to his attorneys about how to deal with Dr. Oziel at the trial. They're really involved in their trial, by the way. They're like coming up with lots of ideas.
Right. They're pitching stuff to their defense.
They're like, I wrote a screenplay on crime, so I got some ideas.
I know.
Several days later, the sheriff's office quietly announces that there was no escape attempt, and it was jail trustees who are honor prisoners with nonviolent backgrounds who get this job of helping to move prisoners between jails and courts. They had cut several jailed people's chains as a prank.
That's horrible.
And the cops got access to all this information they never would have had if not for this prank.
That is so...
Like, what's the prank?
It seems like the prank is just to get these prisoners in trouble, right?
Right. And those are the honor prisoners. They're supposed to be on their best behavior.
What is the prank?
I don't know. It's horrible. So I like how the sheriff's department, too, is like, low key, like, oh, by the way, like, come on. So a week later, Eric, Lyle, Dr. Oziel, and Judulon all testify for the first time in a closed hearing. This is regarding these tapes. During her testimony, Judulon claims that Dr. Oziel was still exerting mind control over her and that he was affecting her answers.
Fuck.
So finally, the decision everyone has been waiting for was ready to be heard. Everyone arrives at the courtroom in a very serious mood. The smiles are not happening. Armani suits are now gone, and their tans were noticeably gone as well. People were like, they don't look like they did that day they came in the first time. The judge is about to reveal his decision on the tapes. He says, I have ruled that none of the communications are privileged. There is an audible gasp in the audience because this is devastating news for the defense. The family members there are very upset. And the judge basically says that Dr. Oziel had reasonable cause to believe that the brothers did constitute a threat and it was necessary to disclose this information to police, I guess, and to record it in general. So obviously, the defense is not having this, and they almost immediately file for an appeal, which will drag this case out even further. So,
but unlucky for the brothers, they're on, like, they're remanded to jail.
They're still in jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are not people who get out on bail.
Right.
Especially with all this information that they were thinking of escape routes and whatever. As soon as this announcement comes out, Judulon has already lined up an interview with Diane Sawyer on ABC's Primetime Live. And she really lays it all out in this interview. She talks about the confession. She goes into details of what went down the night of the murders. She talks about Oziel's takes on the brothers, as particularly Lyle being an asocial personality like Ted Bundy. And at some point, she says his opinion of them changed, though, from murderous monsters to calling them poor boys.
Judulon
says this. Now,
about the psychiatrist said that.
Yes, she's talking about what the psychiatrist told her.
That he has some sympathy for them.
Well, his sympathy came later. So who knows what his motivation for that is, because he's definitely like an opportunist as well. So Eric will later tell a relative that Smith's testimony will be torn to shreds in court, but the family see this appearance as a turning point for them. Many of them still thought the boys did not do it.
Family members.
Family members thought they were innocent.
So they thought like an intruder.
Yeah,
or
whatever. The mob hit. And the boys technically haven't confessed yet outside of these tapes.
Right.
And to the friend who said he did. So there's even to the defense attorneys, they haven't confessed.
So they really don't want these tapes to be heard.
So the family members said that the interview put things in perspective for them. They're like, some of them are still kind of on the fence. They're like, I guess it's not a complete lie. Like maybe there's some truth to it. And one cousin who was sort of a staunch supporter was like, they're guilty as hell. The kids need to confess and plea bargain. My problem now is the motive. Like, why did they do this? So most people in the family who did finally kind of, accept the fact that they were guilty of killing the parents wanted something other than money to be the motive. They're like, that doesn't make sense. Like, there must be something more. At this point, Eric and Lyle are still publicly proclaiming their innocence, but the defense is kind of like onto. They kind of know that they probably did do it. What they didn't know is why. So the early stages of what would be the brothers' defense began to emerge, and it will one day mockingly be called the abuse excuse.
That is outrageous.
I know.
That they named it that.
I know. So Leslie Abramson asked a forensic psychiatrist named William Vickery to evaluate Lyle and Eric. And he says initially he accepted the prosecution's theory that they were spoiled rich kids who hated their overbearing parents and killed them so they could live freely and keep all the money. But he quickly began to suspect that there had to be something more, because kids rarely kill their parents unless they are motivated by something. Oftentimes it's to stop abuse. So while he came to the conclusion that Jose might be a monster, he was having trouble reconciling why they killed Kitty as well, because as far as he knows, no one's really saying bad things about Kitty. At the most, it's like she's kind of passive. She's unhappy in her marriage kind of things. So one thing that really put Vickery on the boys' side was that initially both boys spoke proudly of their father, only saying nice things and really putting him on a pedestal. He thought that Eric and Lyle had been programmed to depict Jose as heroic. After the killings, they began to idealize their parents even more. And he said their reflections were like a battered individual describing a dead, abusive spouse. But the more they talked, the more was revealed, especially by Eric, who began telling Vickery about how Jose beat Kitty regularly, how the boys would try to convince her to leave him, but ultimately realizing she would protect Jose above all others, including her sons and herself. Eric also revealed that when he was 10, he walked into his parents' room and found Jose raping Kitty, who was tied to a bed. Both the doctor and Leslie Abramson were frustrated. They still weren't getting insight into why Kitty was also murdered. And then on the 26th, it finally came out. 1 week before the murders was when Eric found out Kitty had known Jose was molesting him the whole time. So more details from this day. Eric reveals that the father was not having sex with the mom, and he started talking about his sexual molestation. He said at the age of 6, his father began giving him massages to stretch him out, massages for sore muscles and sports, eventually telling him to turn over, and he began massaging Eric's penis, telling him it was tension release. He told me I needed to relax and release tension and stress. And then the father began asking him for massages, which eventually leads to oral sex, Eric giving the father oral sex. Eric reveals more details of the sexual abuse, saying that Jose would force him to swallow after ejaculating in his mouth. Eric would become emotional as he told of these incidents, including sodomy. He said it was very difficult, but he did tell his cousin Andy, who promised he would never tell.
So he told his cousin at the time.
Yes. So that cousin will be a witness at some point. Because a lot of the accusations are that they made it up after the fact. So they're really trying to get proof that people talked about this years.
Yeah.
So it's after this intensive therapy that the brothers finally admit to killing their parents. Although Lyle will initially deny that he was also molested at first. So yeah, he says nothing like that ever happened to me. And Eric told Vickery that Lyle had secretly confessed to him that something sexual did happen between him and our father. But he said he will never tell anybody, that will never come out. So Vickery actually begins to think that Lyle is the more fragile brother when the popular opinion is that Lyle is the controlling one and in charge, because Eric is more demonstratively like emotional all the time.
And he's younger.
Yeah. So Lyle, as I mentioned, finally has his attorney. Her name is Jill Lansing, and she joins Leslie in this fight to keep the tapes out of evidence. Now, part of the reason this case gets dragged out so long before the trial starts is because of this California Supreme Court hearing to kind of figure out what to do with these tapes. In August of 92, they get a pretty big victory. The court rules that Oziel's dictated notes about his meetings are admissible, but the two other tapes that include confessions coming straight out of Eric and Lyle's mouths in late November and December of 89 are not admissible. So we're still just getting his kind of notes, which, obviously not as good as hearing the boys say it.
Right.
In December of 92, the brothers are finally indicted for first-degree murder and conspiracy, but the grand jury rejects prosecution's special circumstances request of murder for financial gain. Jill Lansing says that money is not what this case is about and never has been. The Porsche, the Marina Del Rey penthouse were an important part of the prosecution's case in terms of making people not like the kids. The brothers had all the money they needed before the killings. The defense now goes on the offense. Their goal is to turn the public perception of the brothers around. They were not spoiled monsters. They were actually also victims. An LA Times front page story from June of 93 just a short time before the trial will begin, Leslie Abramson reveals publicly for the first time that the boys had been sexually abused by their father, Jose, and that Kitty was complicit in this house of horrors. She said the reason for the overkill was that Lyle and Eric were terrified during the murders. Now, Leslie Abramson and Jill Lansing had kind of debated about going public with this information. Jill was against it and Leslie was obviously for it. But it was kind of all they had, really. And she was kind of worried about this abuse excuse criticism, that would come up, that it would just be seen as a cynical ploy to kind of escape the death penalty. But that's what they're going with. On July 8th, 1993, a jury of 7 women and 5 men are impaneled for Lyle's trial, and 6 women, 6 men are chosen for Eric Menendez's jury. Pamela Bosanich, who is the chief prosecutor in the case, says this is not a prosecution trial. This is a defense trial. The defense has conceded all the prosecution charges. They have to prove that the boys were in immense danger from their parents, and they have to prove sexual molestation. And many people did not give a shit. Like, as I mentioned, just calling it the abuse excuse is kind of like demeaning.
Callous.
Yeah. Dominic Dunn also did not give a shit. He said that he didn't feel an ounce of sympathy for the 2 young killers, even though I acknowledge that they did live a miserable life with their mother and detestable father. I happen to believe in the alternative solution of moving out. Like, that's his sort of like, you risk not getting the money, and these kids like money. So he's saying they always had a choice, but they didn't want to give up the money. So would people be sympathetic to the idea of this level of abuse, that it could happen in a well-to-do family? That was another thing. People were kind of like, rich people don't molest their kids. Like,
wow.
It's kind of like so dated to think that way,
so
but it's
dated.
like, obviously rich people, yes, they do. Yeah. In fact, do horrible things to children and women and whatever. So it definitely was, the defense was definitely facing an uphill battle with this, especially at this time.
This is 1993.
Yes. So we'll take a break here.
And we're back. And we want to talk about our upcoming tour briefly before we get back to the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
We're going on tour starting September 25th. We're heading to San Diego first. And then the very next day, we're in Phoenix. So if you haven't gotten your tickets to those 2 shows, you should get them now.
Yeah. We'll be at the Mic Drop in San Diego.
And then the Desert Ridge Improv in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And we're talking about your hometowns. Like, we're talking, each live show is different.
Yes. And it's very specific to the city we'll be in. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We've really been enjoying your food recommendations that you've been sending us. Can't wait to eat all the food. We're also playing several more cities. So if you want to get those tickets, we'll have a link in our show notes of this episode. We're doing Vegas, Denver, San Francisco,
Portland, Cleveland,
Detroit, and Chicago.
Yeah. So all of them in one link tree. We learned technology.
We learned how to do this, how to group them all together in one easy place. So look in the show notes of this episode. You can also find that same information on our Instagram page. We'd love to see you, and we can't wait to meet you guys.
Okay. Back to Menendez brothers.
Thank you, Desi.
So just after 6 a.m. on Tuesday, July 20th, 1993, 3 years and 11 months after Jose and Kitty Menendez were killed, a line for the public seats to the murder trial of their sons formed outside the Van Nuys Superior Courthouse. That's crazy how long it took.
I was thinking that while you were going forward with each date.
Yeah, I know.
It's always wild to me. I mean, that's often the case, especially in like a big trial like this.
Right.
Where it's like 5 years after the crime was committed.
Right, because, it took 7 months to arrest them, but still. There's 3 more years plus on top of that.
There's appeals.
Yeah.
There's gathering evidence.
Yes.
Building a case.
So by 8 a.m., it's literally like a carnival atmosphere. There is so much media and cameras at this trial.
Are they selling merch?
They're selling merch. I don't even want to know what it would say. Probably would be inappropriate.
I don't know. I feel like we're lucky this case didn't happen today, maybe.
Yes. So the court only allowed 12 seats for the media. So most reporters are in that room where they're all watching a TV feed about a block away. As I mentioned, there's also the 2 juries that are coming in. And we basically get started right away. The prosecutor, Pam Bostonich, gives her opening statement, which is basically laying out what happened the night of the murders. She calls the 2 brothers actors who fooled everyone in those early days. She talks about their spending spree, and she kind of gives a little teaser trailer of what's to come, including the testimony of their star witness, Dr. Oziel, who they said would claim the boys killed out of hatred and never made any mention of self-defense or the extensive abuse at the time that they confessed to him. When Jill Lansing gave her opening statement, she started it by shitting on the prosecution's greed theory. She reiterated what she said in a quote earlier, saying the boys had more than enough money at home, which kind of reminded me of Rob Ford.
I got more than enough to eat at home.
I got more than enough at home. So she then laid out to the jury how the defense would take you behind the facade of the perfect rich family into the house of horrors, one where Lyle was desperate to protect his little brother who had been sexually abused by their father since the age of 6. She described Jose as saying it was something done in Roman times to Lyle, and when he molested Eric, and that he created strong bonds, that created strong bonds between fathers and son. She said that Mother Kitty knew and was too weak or evil to do anything about it. But she also had her abusive side as well, often telling Lyle she wished he had never been born, blaming the boys for her relationship issues, putting the boys down whenever she could, and of course, the infamous toupee ripping off the head incident with Lyle. Often considered Jose's favorite son, Lyle had the added pressure, she claimed, of becoming the corrected version of Jose, someone Jose could beat and humiliate and give his son the opportunities that he kind of feels like he didn't have and could succeed even more than Jose did. Lansing spoke of a home with no boundaries, where the boys often showered with their dad up until his death, and the mom would often come in when they were bathing and start washing them in the tub. What led to the murders, she said? Fear, and in the defense's opinion, self-defense. After confronting the dad a week or so before the murders, the boys were terrified that they would be killed by their parents, who were desperate to protect their public image. Leslie Abramson's opening statement added even more horrific details to the story regarding Eric. She said, that Jose's inappropriate touching of his young son began at the age of 6. It escalated in a calculated pattern of grooming the child for his father's sexual gratification. She said that included forcible oral copulation, sodomy, rape, and intentional infliction of pain by the use of foreign objects on Eric. Eric begins sobbing during this opening statement, and the jury and everyone in the courtroom is riveted. This is like, as far as a trial goes, they're hearing things like you don't normally hear, like in a trial, right? This is like a lot of information that's coming out right now for the first time. Jose would also slap Eric during some of these sexual assaults. He would torture Eric using a variety of objects. And these episodes are what Eric referred to as dark days. 7 days before the murder, Jose told Eric that he could enroll in UCLA, but would have to sleep at home. We talked about this episode 1, and this really shook Eric, because he realized at that moment he wouldn't be leaving his dad's control, and that the sexual abuse would be continuing. The prosecution tells you Eric did it for money, says Leslie Abramson. What do they say when poor kids kill? That was her like little ending
That's
to her
that's
thing.
good.
Yeah, because it's true. It's like, yeah, it's like what we said earlier. Kids don't usually just kill for money. Like it's pretty rare if it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But if you take money out of the equation, like what else is there? So opening statements were done and witnesses began to be called for the prosecution. After some testimony by people like Tom Edmonds, the investigator who interviewed the brothers after the murders, Perry Berman is called. You might remember him as the guy who got stood up at the Cheesecake Factory.
I'm so glad they called him as a witness.
He was actually also a tennis coach, and that's kind of how he met the boys. The brothers, he sort of backs up that Jose was a controlling asshole, claiming he had never seen a parent interfere as much with tennis players as Jose did, saying it was almost shocking. He also testified that the home was full of tensions and secrecy. And this is sort of like the beginning of a lot of prosecution witnesses where you're like, how does this help them? Like, why did they call him?
Wait, the prosecutor?
Yes, the prosecutor called this guy, I guess, to get some timeline of the night of the murders. But then on cross, all these other things come out, and it's kind of a bust.
And the prosecution was expecting that he would turn on the boys because they left him high and dry at the food festival and the Cheesecake Factory.
Right. He didn't get his tequila chicken.
Yeah.
So while Perry Berman is testifying in Sacramento the same day, the California Board of Psychology is charging Dr. Jerry Oziel with assaulting two female patients, the former nannies that I mentioned last episode, while they were his lovers. He's also accused of giving them mood-altering drugs with prescriptions. The charges are filed by Judalon Smith, and she makes sure to reiterate that Oziel wanted to be called Dr. Daddy. She knows. She's like, we got to get that detail in there. Now, this is just days before he is set to testify. And obviously, the defense is going to have a field day with this information.
Also, if you're like a juror and you're like, oh my, like you're talking amongst the other jurors, like when you're sequestered, you're like, oh my God, we're going to meet Dr. Daddy today.
Seriously?
Like, heard so much about him, and now's the time. Dr. Daddy is here.
And how can you take him seriously?
I couldn't.
No. Leslie Abramson makes a statement that clearly, like, this is outside the courtroom after the day of whatever, the testifying is done for the day. And she's like, clearly Oziel is a menace to the mental health of the people of California. He has a selfish agenda getting involved in this case, seeing the brothers as future money-making endeavors and nothing more. He's using the tapes to blackmail them into He was using the tapes to blackmail them into cooperating with him for a possible book. On the fifth day of the trial, the judge ruled that the jury would not learn about the screenplay Friends. But Craig Signorelli did testify about how Eric initially confessed before he denied it when the police wire happened. He also gives some testimony on cross that made it look like he had coordinated dates. He said this confession happened to match investigators' timeline. So overall, another very unsuccessful witness for the prosecution. They really were putting all of their eggs in the Oziel basket. Next up, we have the testimony of Donovan Goodrow. He proved to be the first really shocking moment in the trial.
Because he's the guy who lived in a van.
He's the guy who lived in the van. Lyle had stolen his ID and used it to purchase the guns. So that's his connection. The defense was confident about a conversation he had with Lyle, in which Lyle confided that he and Eric had been sexually abused by Jose. As I mentioned, this is important because they're really trying to establish that this stuff was discussed pre-murder and not just something made up as a defense. In a private hearing about his testimony, they do this a lot, this case, to see if it's, not too prejudicial or like whatever. I guess to establish whether or not this hearsay testimony will be allowed, he does a 180 and says that convo never happened.
What?
So the defense is like, we literally flew to New York to talk to you about this to see if it happened and we could use you as a witness. And it really took the wind out of their sails for a second. They were fucking pissed. Now, here's where something kind of interesting happens. Robert Rand, who wrote the book I'm using as a source, was covering this case back in the day as a reporter. He had also interviewed Donovan at some point, and he actually had on tape Donovan saying what the defense had said, that Lyle had told him about abuse suffered by him and Erica's children. The newspaper got word of this, and Donovan was now front page news with the headline, "Perjury?
You fucked yourself, boy."
So now the case takes another detour with Robert Rand becoming part of the trial that he's covering. He is eventually ordered to hand over the tape interviews to both the prosecution and the defense, and there will be more with Donovan later. Now, because our star witness, Dr. Oziel, is taking the stand, this is like a huge day in court. Everyone is like, this is it. This is the big one. So there probably would have been no arrest, no indictment if the confession and the talks he had with the brothers had never come to light. So this is not only the linchpin to the prosecution's case, but this is a must take down witness for the defense. After going through a detailed account of what the brothers told him regarding the planning and execution of the murders, his testimony ended with him saying that he laid out for the brothers the various types of murder: premeditated, which involved planning, versus crime of passion, which is obviously like a heat of the moment type thing. He asked the brothers what described their crime, and without hesitation, he said they picked the first. From the moment she began her questioning of Oziel, Leslie Abramson was on the attack. She went after him for his billing practices, his love of the media. She constantly referred to him as a sex therapist, kind of like laying this groundwork that this guy is a sex-obsessed, patient gouging, prevaricating media hound, and just like a not trustworthy fella. The first big blow for Leslie was when she questioned him on his practice of taking notes during sessions. He revealed that he only took notes when he felt something critical was happening. Leslie pounced on this. But why then did he only take notes after the session when a confession to murder was happening at that moment, forcing the doctor to admit that he didn't take notes on what was certainly the very definition of critical information? She continued maligning his credibility when he couldn't recall or confirm whether or not he knew or requested Judulon to be at these sessions. She also took aim at his claims that he was in fear for his life, snidely asking why Oziel, if he said he believed that he and his family were in mortal danger, instead of going home to assure his family's safety, went to his girlfriend's house. Oziel objected to not the principle of what she was saying, but for her calling Judulon his girlfriend. She said, "So would you be more comfortable with the word lover?" Ooh. Oziel explained, "I wasn't afraid that if in fact in some way they could have followed me to where I was, they would have found me with my wife and children. So you instead went to Miss Smith's and put her, based on what you're telling us, in danger." He said, "Actually, at the time, I didn't think that Eric and Lyle would have gone to Miss Smith's house because Eric knew where I live, so my immediate concern was that he would go to my house, and for that reason, I didn't go to my house." And Abramson was ready with a zinger. "I thought I just heard you say you thought they might follow you." So that kind of put the kibosh on that theory. Oziel was bombing. This guy's a mess. And Leslie's not finished destroying him. She questioned him regarding sharing sensitive patient information with his lover, a clear ethical violation. She accused him of using this knowledge to keep her in line, making her think her life was threatened. He denied this, but Leslie had tapes proving that he did this.
I mean, that's really, at the end of the day,
yeah.
That's the thing. This guy shared this incredibly sensitive information with the woman he was having an affair with.
No, it's
like, that's crazy.
It's like you could even maybe let it slide with his wife, who was also a psychiatrist.
Right.
Like maybe
a case.
It's probably still unethical.
But she's like his assistant or something.
You would at least do it like anonymously. No, Judulon doesn't work for him. She's like a patient. Like, it makes it even worse.
It's even worse. She's not even in the office.
No, she's not supposed to be there.
And I'm sorry, I forgot. She was like sitting in on some of these sessions.
No, she's sitting in the waiting room, like with her
listening
in. Yes, and I think he played things for her,
right
after the fact.
I mean, this guy. I hope he got like
no, it's crazy,
disbarred or whatever.
Also, it's kind of like you should not be able to hear it through the psychiatrist's door.
No.
Like that needs to be...
That needs to be a vault.
Yes. Because what if could anyone just come up to the door and listen? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, most people just obviously don't do that, but
still, if you like overhear something.
Yeah, she might have, maybe there's like a sort of in-between space that she had access to or something. Anyway, obviously the tension in the courtroom is thick when this is happening. And at some point the court is like gone for the weekend. So we leave this like incredibly tense moment.
And you don't want that. You don't want to leave him on that.
No, because the whole weekend, everyone's like, well, dude, this doctor is fucking, what a mess. And Leslie's, she's also like getting warmed up. On Monday, she asks if Jedeikin was a lover and a patient, and this outraged Oziel. He denied it, but Leslie had proof. I mean, this is like, you don't fuck with this defense attorney. If they ask a question, they want you to say something they know you're going to lie about, and then they hit you with the proof that you actually did do it. He insisted on stand that Jedeikin was obsessed with him and not the other way around. And obviously the defense had proof, including this handwritten note that he gave to her in January of 1990 that said, "For like a nymph, she strides from the forest at daybreak, dressed in white where no other man had truly known her, Jedeikin." She said, "Is that a poem you wrote to Jedeikin Smith at a time that you've testified you were trying to break off the relationship?" His response, "That's not a poem." It's like, that's not really the point, sir.
You called her a nymph.
You don't call someone who's stalking you a nymph. Like, that's only going to rile them up further.
Yeah.
So as the day comes to a close, it becomes obvious that she's still going to need to start again in the morning with Oziel still. And she tells the judge, she's like, "Don't worry, it'll be brief tomorrow because I'm frankly sort of sick of him."
Oh. This guy is being humiliated.
No, she dragged his ass. The next day was brief, ending in Oziel's queries, talking about Oziel's queries for book proposals he wanted to write about his experience with the case. The prosecution's star witness is officially a bust. And as the prosecution is nearing the end of presenting their case, they still hadn't convinced anyone of a strong and clear motive, which was their goal. It's at this point that someone on the prosecution's team recalls that Oziel had mentioned the boys being inspired after watching a movie special on the BBC. Investigators began searching for what this movie is, hoping it would nail down a motive, perhaps serving as an inspiration for the brothers, but nothing was coming up. Then Assistant DA Lester Kuriyama told the judge his wife went to the video store looking to rent The Addams Family for his daughter.
Oh, love that movie.
When she came across a movie in the B section, BBC, The Billionaire Boys Club, Leslie rolls her eyes and she's like, "Eureka!" She's like, these guys are full of shit. I like how they keep calling it the BBC and they thought it was the British Broadcasting.
That's so funny.
So Kuriyama, obviously, the wife like rents the movie and brings it home and he watches it and he can't believe the similarities between the two cases. They're trying to have this movie played in court for the jurors.
The whole movie?
I know. It's like, what is this? Like the AV club?
Right.
Like the TV day when they roll the TV in?
Yeah.
And he starts giving his reasons why. He's like, they got all these ideas from the movie. Look at this movie. This is exactly like their dad. Leslie's face is like, she's just like, can't believe this is happening. He brings up that Joe Hunt drove a Jeep. He wore a Rolex. That at some meeting with
not
Craig,
a Rolex.
Craig Signorelli, Eric suggested they form a group that would make millions of dollars. And Craig's like, oh, kind of like the BBC. And they're like, yeah. Now, this movie was from 1987. It stars, what's his name from The Breakfast Club? Judd Hirsch?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
No, Judd.
Not Judd Hirsch.
Not Judd Hirsch. The other.
Judd Nelson.
Judd Nelson.
Sorry. I was like, I know that's wrong.
I love the idea of Judd Hirsch in his, however old he was then.
In his comeback.
I know. A boy.
So, yeah, this is from 1987. Other things that he kind of put like as a coincidence were Joe Hunt describing it as a perfect murder, the initial suspects being the mafia or a drug cartel, possibly an outside political enemy coming in, like they had said with Castro and Jose. The defense argues that this is highly prejudicial, and the judge agrees. So the prosecution's last attempt at like a Hail Mary is a no-go.
We're not watching a movie in my courtroom.
And the jurors are like, come on, we need a day off.
Yeah.
At this point, the prosecution rests, and people who initially thought this case was a slam dunk are beginning to have doubts. Now, Lyle and Eric, as I mentioned, are very involved in their defense, and they had been following public opinion via news outlets as well as court TV commentary and all of the call-in shows where people just call in to talk about the case. You remember watching like Larry King?
Of course.
Oh my God, and people would just call in with their opinions. Just like
so many shows, radio shows. I mean, so many shows where people
I'm
were
assuming
calling in.
those things still exist. I just don't see them as much anymore as I used to. But I used to love you'd have like the most insane people
calling
with their
in.
weird theories or like opinions.
Yeah.
And they'd be so emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
So they're like tracking all of this, which is actually very smart.
They're finding what the people think.
Yeah. So they know the prosecution's theory for the motive of spoiled, rich, bad seed kids wasn't very strong. And Eric actually suggests this kind of gimmicky thing, saying that they have 4 categories of motive: hatred, money, molestation, and fear.
They should go into marketing.
I know. And that they have the witnesses' support for each theory. And they say, like, where is the balance going to line up? And every time people testify, they put weights on the scale for each motive theory.
Where'd they get a scale?
I have no idea. And then eventually, at the end, there'll be this dramatic scale tipping for fear and molestation or whatever.
Where'd they get like an old-fashioned
They need an old-fashioned scale.
Where'd they get that?
They didn't do it.
Oh, they just
that was just his
it.
Like they're like coming up with ideas.
It's like a cinematic.
Well, because he's a screenwriter.
Everything
right?
they do is like very cinematic. Or
Right.
they just the things they discuss they want to do, like including their escape routes. Like,
of course.
We're gonna fly to Lebanon and then London.
I mean, to be honest, that's like probably how I would be, because I would, all my information for things like this would be from movies and television.
I know. I laugh, but that's true.
So ultimately their strategy is basically putting the parents on trial. So it's, a victim blaming classic defense, right? Where you make the victims, whatever.
Wait, who's victim blaming?
Well, they're going to start blaming the parents for getting murdered, that they deserved it, that it's their fault, basically.
Oh, that's like the defense's.
That's the defense's tactic. They're going to put the parents on trial, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously sometimes it's probably deserved if it is an abuser.
There can be multiple victims in a story.
So Leslie, she starts it off by saying the defense is finally going to present to people what really happened. The first witness is Marta Cano. This is Jose's sister. But things get contentious just minutes in because Leslie asks about Jose's childhood and the prosecution objects. The judge eventually sides with the prosecution, saying that the psychological experts the defense is calling would be allowed to testify about his childhood, but Marta basically isn't allowed to do that.
His sister?
Yeah, I guess they don't want to. They don't want her saying things like, "And here's how he became a molester,"
right?
Like that kind of thing. I guess making opinions about what led to it. I have no idea. So she basically speaks about that the lie that the Menendez family had been putting up, that's this loving, perfect family. She had initially said that to police when the murders first happened. And then she said it was to protect the image that they had wanted to present, but it wasn't true. Bozanach, the prosecution, asked her whether she had anything nice to say about her brother. And she said he was an admirable person. He controlled business negotiations, every business negotiation he would encounter. He had a total dedication to his children, but that became a sick type of obsessive dedication. What about Mrs. Menendez? Is there anything you liked about her? Well, I admired her. She was a tremendous athlete. She was very strong. She could pick up a Christmas tree and move it from one place to the other. I admire the fact that she was intelligent, a handyman, and she could put together a barbecue. Sorry. Imagine that's what someone said your good qualities were.
I'll allow it.
I mean, it is kind of funny, but there's nothing in there about like she was a great mom.
No, she
like,
could put together a barbecue and lift a Christmas tree with one hand.
It's like she's trying to come up with things, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'll give her credit for that. After she finishes, one of the defense's psychological experts is brought on to give an overview of how men or boys in particular are more likely to keep quiet about sexual abuse out of shame or fear they will be seen as gay. This leads to extreme low self-esteem in the doctor's opinion. The prosecution asks, what if the person was arrogant? Would that be sort of the opposite of low self-esteem? And the doctor says to her, you may know this, but arrogant people actually have very low self-esteem.
Wow. That's a sick
crazy.
burn.
And then she snaps back. And some arrogant people are just arrogant. The prosecution's losing it a little bit at this point because I think they realize they fucked up.
Because this should be, you would think this would be a slam dunk case.
So other family members testify. They claim to have seen and heard physical, verbal abuse to the brothers that the brothers suffered. One cousin makes an outrageous claim, but it actually kind of made me sad. He said he found a Tupperware under Lyle's bed that had poop in it. And Lyle said he was embarrassed that the cousin found it and said that he would sometimes poop in there rather than go to the bathroom to avoid the possibility of some form of abuse.
That's horrible.
That was kind of heartbreaking to me. So one cousin, Diane Vanda Wollen, was the first.
Woofin.
That's how I initially wrote it, but I think Vander Molen.
That's
Vander
completely
Wolfen is
different.
better.
Desi. That's way different.
I think I was thinking of this Gossip Girl character.
Vander Woodson?
Yeah.
That's also different.
They're all
Woofin.
different. Vander Wolfen, I was going off with that one, she was the first to testify about hearing about sexual abuse as a kid. She said there was a lot of weird sexuality in the house. And then one night after dinner, Jose was with the boys. She said that 8-year-old Lyle came to the basement room and said he wanted to touch her down there. Her impression that he was afraid, he became more serious and said he and his dad had been touching each other's genitals. She said that she went to Kitty and told her, but Kitty didn't believe me. After that, Kitty dragged Lyle upstairs to his bed. She said it was never discussed after that, and I convinced myself I was in the wrong. Both Eric and Lyle cry as they listen to her testimony. At a hearing without the jury, Leslie has another shocking piece of information. She reveals that the brothers would testify to the fact that at the ages of 8 and 5, Lyle molested Eric. The judge was literally like, what? He was shocked by this piece of information. He then warns the defense that this whole issue, the linkage between molestation and murder, if it happened at all, is being blown way out of proportion. Molestation is not a legal defense. So he's clearly not on their side. And Leslie is outraged by this dismissiveness. Outside the courtroom, she complains to reporters that the judge was treating this case like a liquor store robbery, but this case, by its very nature, required evidence not relevant in the ordinary criminal trial. The defense then presented several days of sympathetic witnesses who detailed harsh realities faced by the boys as far as the strict parenting, oppressive schedule, tennis practice. One coach goes on stand and he's in tears by the end of his testimony. Leslie asked him why he didn't do anything if he didn't approve what Jose was doing. And he said that he felt like he couldn't say anything or leave the boys because he was the only friend that they had. So he kind of put up with it.
So they have a lot of people to testify to even just Jose Menendez being an asshole.
Yeah.
And not a nice dad. Absolutely.
I mean, I guess it's just a matter of what you believe at this point or who you trust or believe in. So on Friday, September 10th, 1993, Court TV and trial fanatics cleared their schedules. This was the day everyone had been waiting for. Lyle Menendez was going to take the stand in his own defense. And that's where we're going to leave this off this week. We'll get to that next week. Eric testifies too. So both of them will testify, but Lyle is first.
And in the meantime, you can watch The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick. and Ben Stiller as a take on the Menendez brothers.
Oh, really?
That's like the background plot in the movie.
I never saw the movie.
You gotta see the cable guy, Desi. Oh, it's so good.
I know, it's
so
good.
You
just
gotta
haven't.
see the whole like story that's in the background of the whole movie is like a Menendez brothers trial.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I think Ben Stiller actually wrote or directed that movie.
I think he directed it.
Yeah.
Or maybe he wrote it too.
He directs Severance.
Right.
So the cable guy's so good. It's very dark.
I know it's really dark. I just haven't seen it. It's like one of those movies that came out and kind of got slammed initially.
It did get slammed.
And then it kind of became a cult classic or a cult favorite.
I saw it in theaters and I was definitely too young to get all the like references and stuff probably.
Right.
But I remember being surprised at how dark it was even as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because Jim Carrey is like very slapstick and funny and hilarious, and I was obviously a big fan of his, but it's like very dark.
Yeah.
And funny.
I'll definitely watch it at some point.
I highly recommend The Cable Guy.
Okay.
as a
I mean, I'm glad
companion movie.
I was wondering why you were bringing it up.
Okay,
okay, Rachel.
That does sound crazy. That does sound crazy.
I was like racking my brain. I was like, what did I mention that referenced the cable guy?
So when you were listening to the last podcast recap or episodes about the Menendez brothers, you probably had no idea what the fuck Henry Zebrowski was talking about.
I have no memory. I probably just thought he was going off. Do you know what I mean?
Doing
like,
one of his voices.
doing something where I didn't know what the hell. Because that happens a lot.
I've heard them several times even repeat like this one line from the cable guy where it's like the Menendez brothers.
What's the line? You don't have to imitate it. Just tell me.
And he was Asian.
Oh.
It's the way Ben Stiller says it in the movie. It's like
I see.
It's like a parody of the phone call, the infamous phone call.
Is Ben Stiller's playing a Menendez brother
He
type
plays
character?
both of them.
Okay.
They're twins.
I see.
In the
I
movie.
I see.
They're twins and they're child stars.
Okay.
It's a great. I guess it's
honestly that makes me more interested.
I guess it's considered a subplot, but it goes throughout. It's in the background throughout the whole movie, it plays like it's.
The Menendez brothers were very influential in media.
Yeah.
I mean, so much.
I mean, this movie came out in 96, so it was like a few years after the trial.
Well, it was actually during the second trial.
Right.
So it was still like in the news.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there's an early Law and Order episode based on the case as well. Like it's just everywhere.
I want to watch that one.
Yeah.
Too.
I want to rewatch it too.
Okay, so watch Desi, that's your homework.
That's my homework.
You need to watch The Cable Guy and we can talk about it on the mini.
Okay. I'll try.
It's good.
I believe it's good. You just know we're very overwhelmed right now.
I know. We have a lot going on. Please come see us live.
Yes, we're working so hard to make each of these shows special and amazing in its own way. You will only see these shows live. We are not recording them.
We're not taking video. So come see us and meet us.
Yeah. We want to say hi.
I loved saying hi to everyone in Austin.
So, yeah, definitely come to the shows. San Diego, Phoenix, Denver, Las Vegas, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago.
San Francisco.
All of them. Oh, San Francisco and Portland. Sorry. I was trying to do it off the top of my head. There's a lot of cities.
There's a lot of cities, and we're so excited.
And if you want us to come to your city, we need to make these shows successful. So tell your friends in the areas.
If these shows aren't well attended, we don't know when we're going to tour again.
Yeah. So
I mean, we will.
Even if you're not in those cities, tell your friends in those towns to come.
Yeah.
It'll help us.
Yeah. We want to have a good time regardless of who shows up or whatever. We're going to have a great time. Yes. It'll be super fun.
Thank you. See you next week.